Don Sweeney believes the answers to Boston's problems will come from within, for now at least.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And before we get started, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I am a lifelong Bruins fan. I've been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years. Was a full-time hockey news editor at The Score and have been hosting this podcast since 2019. And in my time watching the Bruins, there have been many coaches that have come and gone. And here we are once again in the aftermath of a coaching change. Don Sweeney, the general manager, addressed the media on Wednesday, explaining his decision to fire Jim Montgomery just 20 games into his third season behind the bench, and what he now expects from interim coach Joe Sacco. Now, one of the things that stood out to me yesterday from Don Sweeney's comments was the fact that he and Montgomery were in discussions regarding a contract extension, but no agreement was reached before the season began. So you combine that with the early struggles, and this clearly influenced Don Sweeney's decision to part ways. For whatever reason, whether it was the Bruins not offering Montgomery what he expected after putting together a fantastic regular season record with the Bruins, or he's looking at the roster that he has, the underperforming, the lack of depth, and saying, hey, maybe let's see how this season goes before we re-up. But he was reluctant, apparently, to sign an extension. Perhaps the Bruins came in low because of his playoff failures, although he did win a playoff series last year against the Maple Leafs. Again, pretty much wildly outcoached by Paul Maurice in those past two playoff runs. So that was interesting. They had discussions about an extension, but nothing came of it. And clearly that influenced Sweeney's decision to make this change. Now, why was Jim Montgomery fired? There was a few things that Don Sweeney revealed were the main reasons. First, of course, Bruins' inconsistent play through the opening 20 games. Falling well below expectations, with many players performing far from their usual standards. Special teams are an issue, discipline is an issue, and 5-on-5 play is a big problem as well. Add that all up, and it's clear that they, for now, see it as a coaching issue or something that can be fixed. But if you look at Boston's overall numbers, they're not exactly pretty. Right now, they are 21st in the NHL in point percentage, 8-9-3 record at .475 point percentage. Goals for per game, they rank 30th in the NHL, 2.4 goals per game. Goals allowed per game, they rank 26th in the NHL, 3.45 goals per game. So they're allowing over a goal more than they're scoring. The power play is dead last in the NHL at 11.7%. And the penalty kill is currently 25th at 75.6%. Shots per game, they are averaging 27.1, which is 26th in the NHL. And shots allowed per game currently sits at 29.5, which is 22nd in the NHL. So it's not just that they're kind of middling here. They've actually been pretty bad in all respects of the game. And they lead the NHL, of course, in minor penalties as well. So you're constantly going to the penalty box. You can't kill the penalties. You can't score on the power play. In fact, you gave up 2 shorthanded goals in the game against Columbus, which was the straw that broke Monty's back, so to speak. And this is the situation. Now, it's not all on coaching, of course. Many Bruins players are underperforming. Training camp was flat across the board, Sweeney said. That's something that Cam Neely said earlier this week. Key players like Brad Marchand, Jeremy Swayman, Elias Lindholm missed time or were not present at all in Swayman's case, which hindered team cohesion. You add to the fact that David Pastrnak didn't have a full summer of training as well because of an injury at the World Championships. He had a wedding. But there's also Montgomery's system, which is in effect here as well. He had a real puck possession system that valued shot quality over shot volume, and it wasn't translating into results. The Bruins were regularly getting outshot. They weren't able to generate much in the way of scoring chances either, and defensive lapses, lack of offensive production, resulting in this terrible goal differential that they have now, which heading into last night's action was tied with San Jose, who won the draft lottery last year. So underperformance from some core players as well as some new additions in Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov. They have not met expectations. Lindholm did miss camp, which affected chemistry. Zadorov's been very undisciplined and tentative at times. Taking too many penalties has put pressure on special teams, hindered 5-on-5 play. All of this put together is why Don Sweeney made this move at this time. And he believes there's still time for the Bruins to turn things around under interim coach Joe Sacco. And while Sacco is the interim coach, he's been slightly upgraded from associate coach. Don Sweeney did say that there is the possibility of adding another coach to the staff to complement the current group, or if things don't turn around, bringing in a new voice altogether. Again, Joe Sacco as the associate coach was very tightly linked with Jim Montgomery, his second in command, taking over when Montgomery was absent. So it's, if he had the answers, as Justin Bourne said in an article, a great article on Sportsnet yesterday, he should have shared them already, something they should have been implementing. And it's quite possible that this whole current coaching group, they might just keep on going with what they've been doing and maybe a bit of a different voice. We'll talk about what Don Sweeney's expecting here from Joe Sacco, as well as preview tonight's game against the Utah Hockey Club here as the podcast continues. Get ready to tackle this weekend's NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place your live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today to get started. And again, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can put $5 down on the Utah Bruins game tonight, the over-under set at 5.5. If that $5 bet hits, you'll get that $150 in bonus bets. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Visit fanduel.com to join today. If you're looking to go to a Bruins game coming up, or there's a concert, comedy show near you that has caught your eye, there's no better place to look for tickets than Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams or bands play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the view from your seat. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the venue. And the all-in pricing feature, when toggled on, means no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. So the Bruins fired Jim Montgomery for several reasons we outlined earlier in the podcast, and now it's up to Joe Sacco to help turn things around. Sacco, according to Sweeney, brings a more direct and simplified coaching style. Sweeney praised Sacco's institutional knowledge, having been with the Bruins now for a decade, and he believes Sacco can restore the team's structure and discipline. Sacco has worked under both Bruce Cassidy and Jim Montgomery, giving him insight into combining effective elements from their systems while adding his own philosophy. Again, Sweeney has now fired Jack Adams winning coaches, one Stanley Cup winning coach in Claude Julien. Joe Sacco has been around for quite some time. He's absorbed the styles from a bunch of these guys, and it's now up to him to try to make his mark on this team and help underperforming players get back on track. Don Sweeney, yes, there are questions about roster composition, but some of the core guys, if they get on track, that should obviously help kickstart a turnaround here. And with 60 games left in the season, 62 to be exact, Sweeney believes there's time to salvage the season. But swift improvement is necessary, because right now the Bruins are outside of the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. That came after Buffalo beat the Los Angeles Kings last night by a score of 1-0. The Bruins are level in points with Buffalo and the Islanders, but they have a point percentage deficit because they've played more games than both of those teams. And it's a really competitive. Right now, you have the New York Rangers in the first wildcard spot because the Metro is so strong right now. Carolina at 28 points, Washington 27 points, the Devils at 26 points, the Rangers at 25 points, but they have 4 games in hand on the Devils. So you got to think all 4 of those teams are going to be in the mix. You look at the East, you have Toronto, Florida, Tampa. So really there's like probably one playoff spot up for grabs here. And the Bruins need to turn things around immediately in order to help grab that spot. And we'll preview tonight's game against Utah later on in the podcast. Now, Sweeney is holding both the players and the coaches accountable here, stating that more changes, I mentioned possibly on the bench, adding to the coaching staff and the roster, it's all possible if results don't improve. So he's seeing Sacco's promotion as a chance to reset the team's mindset and strategy. Difficult change. Sometimes it's necessary, though, to achieve long-term success. The players were echoing the need for accountability and the fact that, obviously unfortunate that Jim Montgomery had to be kind of sacrificed in a way for this message to be sent. David Pastrnak going as far as saying, we lost a great man. Brad Marchand talking about how, it impacts his family, obviously, and it goes beyond hockey. Marchand saying they let him down. Disappointing day, frustrating. It's a reflection of their play, and it was avoidable, Marchand said. That's the tough part about it, is that if they had done their job better, Montgomery would still be around. So he said, you feel terrible as a group individually that they let a really good coach and a really good person down. And he described it as a crappy day, basically. Pastrnak said, you feel a big part of guilt because at the end of the day, the players are the ones underperforming and they're not getting the job done. And because they're not getting the job done, they lost a great coach and an amazing human being. But yeah, it's on the players to perform. And Charlie McAvoy said he couldn't put a finger on it. You want to go back to the start of camp or the beginning of the season, and they just lost it. They lost it for a minute. And it's life. These things happen. But he said, quote, today you wake up and you realize that you still have the best job in the world, playing for the best team in the world, the best organization in the game. And he said, quote, I'm lucky and I'm blessed to be here. Today was a day of gratification, self-reflection, then realizing that they have 62 games left, still in a playoff spot, no longer heading after last night's action. They got everything to play for. That's the crest, each other, and it's all going to be all right. Love his optimism there, and they really need to back that up beginning tonight against Utah. McAvoy said again, we have everything we need in this room. Never wavered in that belief. Have to get back to the simplest things, the foundation of what they are, working, competing, that's it. Too much skill on this team, too much talent in the room where that won't click and come together at some point. And it's now up to Joe Sacco to help right the ship. Again, you could say that this coaching change, this move was made not simply to say that Joe Sacco is a better coach than Jim Montgomery or better suited for the job than Jim Montgomery, but I think it's primarily to send a message to the players that if you're not performing, this stuff is going to happen. People will lose their jobs. People could be traded. New voice will be brought in. But also, it's not just Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. They can't just look down and say, this roster is perfect. This roster can contend. This roster can win. We've made every right decision here. And Don Sweeney even admitted that, saying that he's basically perpetually on notice because if the results aren't there, he knows that after firing Bruce Cassidy, now after firing Claude Julien in the past, bringing in Bruce Cassidy, now firing Jim Montgomery, this is probably his last coaching firing. He could hire someone else if Sacco can't turn things around. It's not really a firing because he's just an interim head coach. So that would be a replacement. But he gets maybe one more head coach hiring. And if things don't improve, then there's no way he can stay on the job. Jack Adams Award winners and continually point to coaching being the issue without taking some accountability and responsibility yourself. Yes, Sweeney believes in the signings that he made. He believes in the core that he's put together. And who wouldn't believe in Jeremy Swayman, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak? There are still significant holes in the roster. You could argue they still don't have a number one center. Elias Lindholm needs to start to even come close to living up to his contract, as does Nikita Zadorov. If not, then he's really going to come under the microscope even more. And Who knows how long it will be until a change is made at that level. But the Bruins do have a chance to turn things around beginning tonight against Utah, and we will preview that game here as the podcast continues. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. And you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So if you think Connor McDavid will get more than half a goal next week, or David Pastrnak will score even more, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this hockey season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. The Utah Hockey Club is in Boston for the second meeting between these two teams this season. Still think they missed an opportunity by not calling this team "You Talking to Me," but that's a story for another day. The Bruins and Utah played back in October, the 20th, in Salt Lake City, with Utah coming out on top in overtime after the Bruins had taken a 1-0 lead in the second period thanks to Cole Koepke. And I look back at the beginning of the season and imagine how bad the Bruins record would be if that fourth line hadn't been kind of on fuego to start the season. Overall, Utah is 7-8-3. They started off pretty hot, but have lost 4 of their last 5, 3 in a row, including Dallas, St. Louis, and actually, sorry, I'm talking about the Bruins there. Bruins having lost 4 of their last 5, Dallas, St. Louis, Columbus, leading to Jim Montgomery's firing. Utah has won 2 of their past 5, and they're coming off losses against Vegas and Washington, although they did beat Carolina, their last win, which is actually pretty impressive. In terms of special teams, Utah, not really much better than the Bruins. They were ranked 30th with a 13.7% power play, 26th on the penalty kill at 75%. The Bruins worse on the power play, again, 11.7%, ranking 32nd in the NHL. And their penalty kill is 25th, just slightly better than Utah's at 75.6. Utah is a strong face-off team. They're second in the NHL with a 54.2% success rate. Boston's 11th at 51.4. Both teams struggling defensively, separated by the tiniest of margins here. Utah's 24th, allowing 3.44 goals per game. The Bruins allowing 3.45. Utah's offense is a bit better, though, 2.72 goals per game, whereas the Bruins are scoring only 2.4. I'm expecting to see some changes here immediately under Joe Sacco, preaching, hopefully, just get the puck on net. Who cares about generating the best quality chances? I'd rather see them become a high volume shooting team, because we know that average goaltending's down in the NHL right now. Although Connor Ingram is injured for the Utah Hockey Club, so it'll probably be Karel Vejmelka in net. He's 1-4, but he's got a .915 save percentage here for Utah. The Bruins, we'll see if they go with Swayman or Korpisalo. Swayman, 5-7-2 with an .884 save percentage. Bruins lines combinations in practice, their first practice under Joe Sacco on Wednesday. Not reinventing the wheel too much because, again, there's only so much you can do with what you have on hand. And on Wednesday, this is what the lines looked like. You had Morgan Geekie back on the top line with Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak. Do not love that. I'd rather even see Merkulov get a look up there. You had Brad Marchand with Elias Lindholm, Justin Brazeau on the second line, Merkulov with Charlie Coyle, and Trent Frederick on the third line, and then John Beecher with Mark Kastelik and Cole Koepke, the fourth line that was so good to begin the season, reunited once again with Tyler Johnson serving as the extra forward. On the back end, Mason Lohrei, Charlie McAvoy, Parker Wotherspoon, Brandon Carlo, Nikita Zadorov, Andrew Peeke with Jordan Osterley as the odd man out. So that will be the lineup that will get the first crack at turning things around here against Utah tonight. It is a winnable game. Utah, again, they started off pretty well, but they've struggled as of late, and they're also a team that could be making a coaching change sooner than later. I've even seen some suggestions that could be a landing spot for Jim Montgomery. Utah, currently fifth in the Central Division. They've got 17 points, a .472 point percentage, a -13 goal differential. The Bruins, not much better, .475 point percentage, and a -21 goal differential, which again is third worst in the NHL. So Don Sweeney played his hand. He made this coaching change. We need to see immediate results tonight. Obviously, if things continue to slide, it not only puts Joe Sacco's interim tag in jeopardy, but it also, the next step is to make some moves here to either trade Trent Frederick or Morgan Geekie, who have no trade protection, or try to move a Charlie Coyle or a Brandon Carlo, perhaps, maybe Pavel Zacha, guys who do have some trade protection, but there are options to move them, certainly. And you look at a guy like Coyle, well suited for a third line role. Pavel Zacha would be attractive because of his contract and what he's able to do. The only untouchables are, your core of Swayman, Pastrnak, and McAvoy. There's other guys that would be difficult to trade, even Korpisalo, the way he's played. There's Zadorov, nobody's taken him. And some guys you want to build around, like Beecher, Lohrei, Matt Poitras, Merkulov. So that would be the next step. But they have a chance to begin a turnaround tonight against Utah. On tomorrow's podcast, we'll be back to preview that game. Recap that game, as well as preview Saturday's action against the Detroit Red Wings. We'll bring you all the latest here on the Black and Gold. Check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey next, where Steal and Flip will give you everything you need to get the edge over your league mates. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.